Okay, good day once again. This is your host, Attorney Lyndon A. Masirin. Welcome to our course, The Law on Partnership and Corporation. We are now in Title 4 of the Corporation Code, and this is Part 8 installment of the laws on partnership and corporations. So we begin with Section 35. The Section 35 of the Corporation Code states the express powers that every corporation can exercise. And these are letters A to letter K. Specifically, letter A, to sue and be sued in the corporate name. Letter B, to have perpetual existence unless the certificate provides otherwise. So if the certificate would provide that the corporation will only have a term of 10 years, so that would be its express power. Then to adopt and use a corporate seal, timbre or tamla. Letter D, to amend its articles of incorporation. And letter E, to adopt bylaws which should not be contrary to laws, morals, or public policies, or to amend or repeal the same. So this particular right is also mandated by law that the corporation, after being incorporated or registered with the SEC, must submit its bylaws within a period of 30 days. Then letter F, in case of stock corporations, that is to sell or issue stocks to subscribers and to sell treasury stocks. Treasury stocks are stocks which have been previously issued by the corporation, then reacquired on a specific date. No, not specific date. Reacquired on a later date. And in case of non-stock, like the Rotary Club, and that is to admit members to the corporation. Letter G, to purchase, receive, take, or grant, hold, convey, or transfer, sell, lease, pledge, mortgage, and otherwise deal with such real and personal property, including securities and bonds of other corporations, as the transaction of the lawful business of the corporation may reasonably and necessarily require. Or H, to enter into a partnership, joint venture, this is new, merger, consolidation, or any other commercial agreement with natural and juridical persons. So natural juridical persons are partnership and corporations as well. Or I, to make reasonable donations, including those for public welfare or for hospitals, charitable, cultural, scientific, civic, or similar purposes, provided that no foreign corporation shall give donations in aid of any political party or candidate or for purpose of partisan political activity. This has been modified. Previously, it includes domestic corporation. The prohibition includes no domestic corporation. Now, therefore, since domestic corporation is omitted in the provision, hence they can already donate to any political party for partisan political activity. Letter J, to establish pension, retirement, and other plans for the benefit of its directors, trustees, officers, and employees, and to exercise such other powers may be essential or necessary to carry out its purpose, stated in the Articles of Incorporation. On the other hand, the specific powers of stock corporations are found in Section 36 to 43. It is highlighted that these are the only specific powers exercised by stock corporations. But Section 36, then the other half of Section 37 and Section 39 can also be exercised by non-stock corporation. So they're stated here. Also for non-stock, also for non-stock, also for non-stock. The rest are only exercised by stock corporations. So in section 36, that is to extend or shorten the corporate term of the corporation. So if the corporation has perpetual existence in its certificate, then the board wants to shorten its life to only 50 years, then they have the right to do so, as in section 36. They can also decrease the corporate stock, meaning the corporate capital stock. And they can also incur or create bonded indebtedness. This is, in other words, to create liability. If the corporation needs money, then what it does is to float bonds so that other people can buy their bonds. In effect, they are borrowing money from the public. That is creating bonded indebtedness. This can also be done by non-stock corporations. Letter D, to deny preemptive right. Letter E, sell, dispose, lease, encumber all or substantially all of corporate assets. So also for non-stock. And if non-stock, the members have no voting rights, then what is only required is the majority vote of the board of trustees. There's no ratification required because the members have no voting rights. Letter F, that is to purchase or acquire its own shares. So this is as a result, there would be treasury bonds, treasury shares in the corporation. Letter G, to invest in another corporation, business, other than the primary purpose. So they have the power to invest in other corporation. And then letter H, to declare dividends in case there are profits or surplus. Then letter I, to enter into management contract. That is to have another corporation manage the business of the corporation. So what are the requisites to exercise these powers? So first, there should be a meeting of the board. And if the board approves it, there should be a meeting of the stockholder to ratify it. So the meeting requires notice. Board members or board of directors and board of trustees should be given notice about the meeting. Or usually in their special meeting, special board meeting. Then once approved by the board, the members or the stockholders will also conduct their meeting. So notices should be sent either to the residences or electronically if allowed by the bylaws. So electronic meaning through email or any kind of computer apps or internet apps. And once the meeting is called, the board then approves it. For the vote required for the board, in case of stock, it should be majority vote of the board of directors. In case of non-stock, the votes required is also majority board of the trustees. And once the board approves it, it goes to the ratification of the stockholders or its members. So the ratification is not required in section 40, which is purchasing of its own shares. This can be exercised even without the ratification of the stockholders, as long as there is unrestricted retained retained earnings. So votes needed, okay, for board members already discussed. The ratification of stockholders should be at least 2/3 of the outstanding capital stock. And in case of non-stock, should be 2/3 of its members. There's a double member here. So we note that stockholders or members, when allowed in the bylaws, can also give or send their respective consent via electronic mail, you know, or email. That is new in the corporation code. For section 37, which is power to increase or decrease capital stock or to incur or create bonded indebtedness, there is an additional requirement, and that is to file a certificate to the SEC signed by a majority of the directors of the corporation and countersigned by the chairperson and secretary of the stockholders meeting, stating the following has been complied. A, the requirements of section 37. B, the amount of the increase or decrease of the capital stock. So in case of increase in capital stock, the amount of capital stock or the number of shares of no par stock actually subscribed, the names, addresses, and citizenships or nationalities of the subscribers. Then the amount of capital stock or number of no par stock subscribed. Then again, the names, nationalities, and addresses of the person subscribing. Then the amount of capital stock or number of no par stock subscribed by each, and the amount paid by each on the subscription in cash or property, or the amount of capital stock or number of shares of no par stock allotted to each stockholder if such increase is for the purpose of making effective stock dividend, therefore authorized. In case of increasing or incurring or creating bonded indebtedness, should also be stated. And the amount of stock that was represented in the meeting. So if the capital stock is 1 million, what is the amount being represented during the meeting? If more than 70%, if only 70%, so 700,000 pesos is the amount of stock represented during the meeting. So that's 2/3, more than 2/3. The vote authorizing the increase or decrease of capital stock or incurring, creating, or increasing bonded indebtedness. So this is additional requirement for section 37. Now in the process during the votation, once 2/3 of the stockholders will give their approval or ratification, there would be, in the process, there would be dissenting stockholders. So who are these dissenting stockholders? They are ones who do not consent or who do not assent to the proposal of the board or do not consent to the ratification of stockholders. So this dissenting stockholder, because they do not want, let's say, for example, they do not want to increase bonded indebtedness, or they do not want the corporate term to be shortened, or they do not want the corporate term to be extended, then they can avail of their appraisal right. So what is appraisal right? It is stated in Title 10 of the Corporation Code. This is the right of a dissenting stockholder to demand payment of the fair value of his shares. So let's say I own shares worth 100,000 pesos, which is now valued at 200,000 pesos. Before I bought it for 100, now it's more than, it's times 2. So it's now 200,000 pesos. So I dissented in the meeting. Then I would like to exercise my appraisal right. So the corporation is obliged to buy again my shares which is now worth or valued at 200,000 pesos. Okay, so that's appraisal right, can be exercised by a dissenting stockholder. On the other hand, preemptive right is stated in specific powers. Denial of preemptive right. This is the, we discussed the preemptive right. This is the shareholder's right to subscribe to all issues, or meaning issuance of stocks, no? Or dispositions of shares of any class in proportion to his present stock holdings. The purpose being to enable the shareholder to retain his proportionate control in the corporation and to retain his equity in the surplus. So if the corporation will issue new shares or unissued shares, the stockholder can exercise his preemptive right in order to maintain his equity or his control in the business. Let's say, for example, I owe 50% of a corporation. So 50%. The issued stocks of the corporation is worth 100,000 pesos. So I own 50%, so that is 50,000 pesos. Now the corporation will issue new shares. Let's say another 100,000 pesos. So total shares that would come out or that would be issued is 200,000 pesos. If I am not given the right of preemptive or the right to buy stocks firsthand, I'm not given the priority, then I might lose my 50% control. No? Because 200,000 pesos, so because 50,000, my shares would remain at 50,000 pesos. And the total capital stock would now be 200,000 pesos. So 50 over 200,000 pesos is no longer 50%, but only 25%. So that is why stockholders should exercise preemptive right. So I'll be given preemptive right, meaning I'll be given priority to purchase new shares that will be issued. So if I'm going to maintain my equity of 50%, then I'm going to buy 50,000 of the new shares to be issued or subscribed by to be issued by the corporation. And how much is that? 100,000 worth of shares. So 50% of that is 50,000. So in order to retain my equity, I will purchase 50,000 worth of shares. So in the process, if all the stocks will be sold, I still will remain owner of 50% of the corporation. And that is why preemptive right is given to shareholders. But there are instances when preemptive right is not available. And these are the following. First, when shares to be issued is in compliance with laws requiring stock offering or minimum stock ownership by the public. No? So if the law says that your corporation must issue at least 20% to the public, so you cannot be given preemptive right. Number two, or secondly, shares issued in good faith in exchange for property needed for corporate purposes. So if the corporation must acquire a property to put its factory and in the process has no money, but instead of paying in money, the corporation will now pay in stocks to the owner of the property. So that's a new issuance of stocks. So there is no exercise of preemptive right given to shareholders. Thirdly, Shares issued in payment of previously contracted debts. So like bonds, no? If the corporation has floated bonds and these bonds are redeemable bonds, meaning it can be redeemed or converted. Oh, no, it's convertible bonds. So these bonds can be converted into stocks. Then there is no preemptive right to shareholders. Fourth, in case the right is denied in the articles of incorporation. Fifth, it does not apply to shares that are being reoffered by the corporation after they were initially offered together with all those shares. So that's why preemptive right must be new issuance. That's why I stated in my example, new issuance of shares. Because if the shares were previously offered, then it cannot be, this particular right, which is preemptive right, cannot be exercised by shareholders. Then we have found in section 38, which is sale of all or substantially, what's that? Is that 38? Yes, 38. No, section 38 is preemptive right. It should be section okay. Sale of all or substantially all of corporate assets is section 39. This is section 39. So if the corporation is going to sell all of its corporate assets, this is computed based on the net asset value reflected in the latest financial statements. So net asset value is the cost minus the depreciation. No, it's the net asset value. And secondly, the sale of all or substantially all of corporate assets would render the corporation incapable of continuing its business or purpose. So if there's a sale and it does not render the corporation incapable of continuing business, meaning it can still continue its business, then it does not fall in this section. Okay, so there's no voting required. There's no majority vote of the board, majority, 2/3 of the ratification of the members or stockholders. So particularly all or substantially all of corporate asset when sold, it must cripple the business, rendering the corporation incapable of continuing its business or purpose. Okay. Now let's go to section 40. Section 40 is acquiring of own shares. No? So this should be section 40 here. Pardon for the misnumbering. Okay. It should be section 40. Oh, section 39. I think we are on the right track. This should be section 39. No? Okay. So what are the requisites in exercising the power to acquire own shares? Number one, there is only one, and that is that the corporation has unrestricted retained earnings in its books. Because if the retained earnings are restricted, or meaning if it cannot acquire its own shares, or if the retained earnings is negative, there is no retained earnings in the books, then it cannot exercise this power. No. So what are the purposes in acquiring own shares? There A is that is to eliminate fractional shares arising out of stock dividends, because stock dividends could give fractions. No, let's say for example you have 5 shares. You own 5 shares, and then the corporation would give out a stock dividend of 30%. Stock dividend 30% of 5 shares, because you have 5 shares. What is your stock dividend? Your stock dividend is equivalent to 1.5 shares. So all in all, after the stock dividends are given, your total shareholdings of the corporation would now be 6.5 shares. So, or 6.5. So there's a fraction. And 1/2 is already a fraction. So letter A, that's the main purpose of acquiring own shares, to eliminate the fractions which are issued out of stock dividend. So eliminate 1/2. No? Letter B, to collect or compromise an indebtedness to the corporation arising out of unpaid subscription. So if the subscriber has not paid his subscription, then the corporation will get back as a compromise the shares. And that would be in delinquency sale, and that is purchase delinquent shares sold during public auction. Usually during public auction, because this sale has not been paid. So who are interested? If nobody buys, then it's going to be the corporation. Then we have letter C, to pay dissenting or withdrawing stockholders entitled to payment for the shares under the provisions of this code. So we have already discussed dissenting stockholder who has right to exercise his appraisal right. Okay, section 40. This is about the corporate's right or power to invest in another corporation, business, or any other purpose. So it can be said or stated that if it's not the primary purpose of the corporation, then it requires votation, no? And that would be board, majority vote of the board, and ratification of the stockholders or members, no? If it is not the primary purpose. But if it is the primary purpose of the corporation, which is investing in corporations or businesses, then there is no need for ratification, because it's the main business of the corporation. Investing corporations, usually holding corporations are like this, no? Like Ayala Holdings, they own investments in several corporations. They are the mother companies, no? So again, if it is the main purpose or the primary purpose of the corporation, excuse me, there is no need for the stockholder or members to approve. Investment is not primarily the purpose of non-stock corporation. So only stockholders, no? At all times, members should ratify, because it is not the main purpose of the organization. Okay. So at all times, members should ratify. So pardon again for including members here. This should be omitted. Only stockholders are not allowed to ratify if it is the main purpose or primary purpose of the corporation. So declaration of dividends. There are additional requirements, and that is it should be out from the URE or unrestricted retained earnings. So dividends can be in cash, property, or stock. Dividends due on delinquent stock should first be applied to the unpaid balance on the subscription plus cost and expenses until fully paid. So delinquent stock, again, are those stocks which have been subscribed or issued to subscribers but not yet paid. No? So since they are not yet paid, so dividends are put on hold or compensated against the unpaid balance of the subscription. Okay. Number 3, stock corporations are prohibited to keep surplus profits in excess of 100% of paid-in capital stock. So this is found in accountancy. No? If a stock has unrestricted retained earnings more than its capital stock or paid-in capital stock, then the BIR will slap the corporation what you call the IAT, or the improperly appropriate funds, no, accumulated funds, accumulated stock funds, tax funds, improperly accumulated tax. So that is the keeping of retained earnings more than 100% of its paid-in capital, because retained earnings should be given out back to its stockholders by way of declaring dividends. Dividends are slapped 10% tax by the BIR. So to eliminate payment of tax, corporation would not declare dividends. Okay. In the sale of all or substantially all of corporate assets, oh, this is already discussed. Okay. Okay, so that gives out the last last section. Not really the last, but this is the last power, specific power, which is the power to enter into management contract with another corporation. The vote required here is majority vote of the BOD or the board of directors, and ratification of at least only the majority of the outstanding capital stock, because most of the powers, specific powers, requires 2/3 of the outstanding capital stock. But in this case, it's only majority of the outstanding capital stock, or the outstanding or only the majority of the members in case of non-stock. Majority lang, dili 2/3. But when is there a requirement that ratification should be 2/3 of its members or 2/3 of the outstanding capital stock? Only if the managing and the managed corporations own or control more than 1/3 of the total outstanding capital stock entitled to vote. The managing corporation, that's one, or where a majority of the members of the board of directors of the managing corporation also constitute a majority of the members of the board of directors of the managed corporation. And in this case, it requires ratification of the stockholder or members representing 2/3 of the outstanding capital stock or members respectively. So again, corporation can enter into contract that another corporation will manage its operations. Give you an instance, the MCIAA, no, which is the Metro Cebu International Airport Authority. It has entered into management contract with another corporation, and now another corporation is running the business or the operations of the international airport in Mactan. So that's management contract. And if both are owned, if both corporations are owned or controlled more than 1/3 of its stockholders, or majority of the board of directors, for both board of directors of the same corporation, of the two corporations are the same, then it requires 2/3 vote or ratification. But if the corporations are totally different, no relation at all, so only majority is ratification is required. Also, we have here management contracts shall only be entered for not longer than 5 years for any one term. It can be subject to renewal, of course. No, so not more than 5 years. Okay. And this is the last section, ultra vires acts. What are ultra vires acts? These are acts which are not within the express or implied powers of the corporation, fixed by its charters or statutes. So when the act is done by the board of directors, then it constitutes an ultra vires act. So instances when this concur or incur, number one, when act not within the express or implied powers of the corporation. Number two, it is entirely without the scope and purpose of the charter or the law or the articles, and not pertaining to the objects for which the corporation was chartered. So not pertaining to the purpose of the corporation, you know? But also for contracts, even if it's in the contracts, can be ultra vires act. Let's say a corporation enters into a contract with another corporation, then one corporation would violate the contract, that constitutes ultra vires act. Third, beyond the limitations conferred by the charter or the articles, although within the purposes contemplated by the articles of incorporation. So what are the effects of ultra vires acts? In executed contract, meaning the contract has already been executed, the courts will not set aside or interfere with such contracts. Why? Because of the impairment clause, no? Of the Constitution. So executed contracts. For contracts which are still executory, meaning not yet performed or not yet delivered, then no enforcement, even at the suit of either party, it is void and unenforceable. So there you go. If it is not yet performed, then there can be no enforcement. Because why? It is void and unenforceable. That ends our discussion for Title 4 of the Corporation Code. And for any questions, comments, or suggestions, you can email that to my Gmail account, Masaren Law. Or you can message me at my IFBay account, Attorney Lyndon Mac. And I'll see you next time, and have a good day.